right, thank you all for being here today. Let me start today, and Jan, thank you for the kind words. And I guess let me start today by thanking Jim Fiore and particularly Jan for putting this conference together with more than 2,000 people. It's always a daunting challenge. And this year has been a little more interesting than usual, so let's have a hand for Jan. All right, today what I'd really like to focus on is human capital. But I'd start with, what does waste management stand for? If you look at our masthead, we stand for education and opportunity. And you've certainly seen some of that already here at the conference. And I'd remind you, tomorrow night, Greg Meyer and his team is supporting women in waste management. Would like you to participate. We have a STEM session on Wednesday where we're going to reach out to the high school students to tell them what we do in this industry, to see if we can attract them for the decades ahead, being our future feeder system for the workforce. And then, of course, the Post Foundation. So what I'd like to focus on today, if you take the second of those goals, it's probably the most important, the human part. Because in our industry, this is first and foremost a people business. That is our main asset. And we say a lot about our human capital strategy and how committed we are to it. But I'd like to question today, are we doing enough to secure the future? Because we are going to have an industry with challenges both in national security and in waste management for 40 to 70 years into the future, if not longer. And if you'd say, are we doing everything we could be doing? I'd say probably not. And I'd like to talk about 4 areas today we might focus on. Now, we as an industry, large businesses, small businesses, and really everybody in between, I'd suggest need to join with the Department of Energy and do a better job of tackling human capital across the complex. Now, there's certainly no lack in our industry of attention or visibility when it comes to human capital. I'd start with NNSA, because we are a combined complex here of NNSA as a waste generator and energy and national security, and of course, those of us that work on the back end cleaning up those wastes. So last year in the 2019 strategic vision document, the administrator of NNSA, Lisa Gordon-Haggerty, listed human capital as her #1 priority. Now, justifiably so, that's very important, but I think what she said is even more important, and I'll quote here, our workforce is aging. 40% of our lab, plant, and site workforce will be eligible to retire within 5 years. And very importantly, at the same time, as we expect staff to be attriting at high rates because of the great job market out there, the demand for skilled labor is increasing. Similarly, Ike White this morning recognized that it's one of his key priorities for environmental management and his EM vision for 2020 and beyond. And then there are others, so that's the DOE side, and they're certainly committed to it, but we contractors are the ones that really need to implement this. So groups like the Energy Communities Alliance are focusing on human capital, and a lot of you I know are here today participating, and they're holding a peer exchange in Santa Fe, New Mexico in May to talk about what works in your community. This is kind of homegrown, that we're saying what works in my community, and then what's transportable to other sites throughout the complex. The Energy Facility Contractors Group, and you heard Michael Lemke speak this morning, and I'm pleased that our FCOG is well represented. There's Sandra Fairchild from Savannah River, and of course Morgan Smith from Y12. All three, as the officers in FCOG, are working hard to raise the visibility of the human capital challenge and work on a complex-wide solution. So we're all working on the right things, but are we getting the necessary results? Now, I ask that in a constructive way because I don't want to diminish any of the tremendous things that are being done out there in the complex right now. Let me just cite a few that I think are noteworthy. At Savannah River, SRNS, Stuart McVean and Rick McLeod, I believe, is here today from work, have had great success in their hiring and workforce development programs. They've developed, starting about 5 years ago, a nuclear fundamentals certificate program with Aiken Technical College. And that offers career opportunities so the people who get out of that program can either work at Savannah River or they can work in the other nuclear projects, commercial nuclear projects in the region. They have a similar program, getting back to touching people in high school, for apprenticeship programs that train operators. And it's a very important element of this. You think about touching the high school students and giving them the opportunity to get the skills they need to get a high-paying job that'll last for decades as long as they want to work and come out with no student debt. That's kind of an impressive value proposition. Los Alamos is another one I'd like to highlight. And so the lab there has been working with the University of New Mexico, again in academic partnership, and then some of the local colleges, and they're training the key skills they need. So project controls, we all need those folks. Project managers, and then red techs. And I think that program there is also teamed because also in Los Alamos, you've got the cleanup contractor, N3B, and I believe Glenn Morgan, the lead of that, is also here today. And they've established, with the great backing of Michael and HII, an RCT boot camp, and that's really earned national recognition for its ability to turn out the number and quality of people that we need for this industry, and they have an engineering apprenticeship program. So from PhDs right down to rad techs, those two sites are working on all elements of that. So how do we share that and how do we build on it? And I could go on and on with the site examples. Morgan Smith is doing some tremendous things at Y12, and they're bringing people in to build the facilities and be welders and then retraining them to be operators for the long term. Sandia, Kansas City, Idaho, Hanford, Nevada, all have important programs. So how do we take those site level approaches and tie them together into a national integrated solution? And it's not just about recruiting and hiring. So I've got 4 things I'd like to recommend today that we work on. Things I say we need to get better at, we are working on in pieces already. First, credibly projecting our workforce future needs. So what are the needs that we're trying to fill? And in many cases, particularly for construction projects, we don't think about that well enough in advance. Second, retention and development of the next generation of leaders. After we hire them in this job market, we need to make sure they're challenged to make sure they stay in this industry. We give them a reason, challenges, and also and value them enough that they remain with us. Third, providing opportunities soon after they're hired for new graduates. And then fourth, investing in the right college programs and scholarship like Post Foundation. So let's take those one at a time. First, projecting the workforce credibly into the future. And in the past, there's really been no coordinated effort, either in the contractors or in EM or NNSA, to look at the craft and union needs that we have. This work is beginning based on a request that NNSA made to FCOG last July, and we're making progress. But as an industry, we're still struggling to fill the pipeline for personnel to support those construction projects. And would remind you, DOE alone has probably $40 to $50 billion of new projects, facilities, nuclear and non-nuclear, to build. So we need a clear, defined process to communicate those job needs, both to the schools as well as to the unions, and a process that goes beyond a single site. One possible option that I'd like to recommend today is make the workforce projections a required part of the DOE 413.3 process. So define it at CD0 when you're defining the project and looking at alternatives. And then what manpower do you need right through the startup and operation of the facilities, as EM is going through right now on SWPF. If we did that, that could provide a formal, long lead projection of the resources needed that we could all plug in and begin working towards. Very importantly, though, once we do those site-wide, the national unions are the ones that, through their apprenticeship programs, turn out many of these crafts. So we really haven't defined, I can't name the person or organization that's responsible for communicating those aggregate needs to the unions. And it's certainly a tough position for any individual company because we deal with our own craft labor, but certainly not with the nationals. And that's another need, I think, getting them into this, the unions at the national level. Let's go to number 2 then, retention and deployment. So after we hire these bright young people, how do we keep them? And as our company's grown, I guess I've gotten a view, and we all have, our entire team across the sites, we and our industrial partners, we see time and time again where we get the right people and the right seats, and then in 2 and 3 and 4 years, they begin to leave. And we hear the same story over and over again, regrettably. They don't see their career path. They don't feel engaged right from the start, and they don't feel like the companies are investing in their future. But these are problems we can solve. This is not insurmountable. I think the key thing that we need to reflect to them, and I said at the outset, they're really exciting national missions and unique environmental challenges and one-of-a-kind projects that'll keep us busy for decades. And if you look across, I know we have closure sites, but how many of the sites that EM has today and none of the NNSA sites are going to be out of business for the next 50 to 70 years? So I think we need to do a better job at defining those and then matching the talent with the skill sets and then allowing mobility between the sites as people go throughout their careers. So point number 3, how do you find a way to provide opportunities for new graduates the day they arrive? And that means getting them a clearance, getting them involved in meaningful work right away, whether it's an EM or an NNSA project. And frequently, we find few opportunities for our new hires just because some of the DOE-provided labor categories that all of we contractors get require 2 to 5 years minimum of experience. Now, I understand the logic of that. In the nuclear business and the nuclear weapons business, we need qualified people. But we need to do a better job of bridging the gap because we as companies can do so much to hire these people and train them to where they have 2 to 5 years experience. But I think DOE needs to really look at how they specify those and recognize that putting some of these bright, energetic young people into those labor categories in their first year could really have a profound positive impact on the mission. Putting all that burden on investment is something that we would like to see DOE and NNSA share with our companies. So finally, we need to be investing in the right university programs and scholarships that cultivate and educate students in the disciplines we need. So now we know the needs. We've flowed those down to specific categories by site. How do we find those people? So I think the key is that we not look 1, 2, or 5 years into the future, but really take a complex wide vision that the administrator of NNSA did of saying, look at 40 to 70 years and give me a solution that'll work for that length of time. So that starts with all of us working proactively with the schools to ensure that they have the degree and certificate programs needed for these skills. But it also means companies like ours, like all of us here in the room, investing in the students themselves. So providing need and merit-based scholarships like we do through the Post Foundation is really critical to filling that pipeline. Waste management, as Jan said, is leading the way, and we're proud to be part of that. Post Foundation, as she said, this is profound, and over the past few decades have provided $4 million. So all of the money that is made here as a waste management as a nonprofit goes to scholarships and STEM education and other educational outreach. Last year, to show you that that program works, last year we were here and looking for some new people for our sites, for our new wins, and we looked to the Post Foundation group of scholars, and we met Ashley Meyer, who's at the table here with us today. So to prove, yes, here you go. So Ashley's an exceptionally bright engineer. She's working for us at Los Alamos, so the system does work. But I can't overstate this. We need a sharper focus on human capital, and the time is now. Bonnie and I, as Jan said, have pledged $250,000 to the Post Foundation because we want to see the best and brightest students come into our industry, whether it's our company or to one of our teammates. And we support scholarships at Penn State and other schools and through Atiba. So what I'd like to expand that challenge today to the other companies and individuals to join us in supporting those scholarships for the long term. Because if we can increase the funding, this is going to be good for all of us. It's certainly going to be good for the students. But having the best and brightest on our projects is essential to our success. So in summary, creating the workforce of the future to support the waste management and national security businesses for decades in the future has to be a high priority. So let's show these young people that we need them, that we value them, and collectively, let's put our money where our priorities are. We can't afford not to. Thank you.